Hi there, welcome to the Schwoven's Nest. My name is Sandra, and I'm so glad you're here. My first project is using this little wooden birdhouse that I picked up at Dollarama, and they had a whole bunch of different styles and sizes. I just decided to go with this plain front one. I did just pull off the bottom because it's a little wonky. It's not thick enough for what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to sand down all the rough edges, and then I'm going to glue it onto 3 of the really large Jenga blocks. Now these are true Jenga blocks. I found them at a thrift store, so I'm going to hot glue the 3 of them together and then hot glue the birdhouse right on top. I'm also getting rid of that little string at the top because I won't need that. Using a pair of pliers, I'm going to gently wiggle out that post because I'm not going to need that either. I'm using a bunch of regular size popsicle sticks, and I've already measured out what the width of the house is. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out a whole bunch of popsicle sticks that are the same length, and I'm using my miter shears. Now these miter shears are amazing. They work really well, but you do have to have some strong grip and be able to squeeze them because that's how they work. Mine are getting a little dull. I'm going to have to invest in either a new pair or get a new blade. So I would recommend, if you do want to get some of these, go down to my description box, click on the link, and that will take you to a set of shears with a couple of extra blades. And I would recommend buying that. I'm going to take these popsicle sticks and glue them right on top of the roof. I want to create some slats on this roof and make it look like sort of shingles or tiles or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to continue gluing them just with hot glue until I get to the bottom. Now that I've got the roof complete, I'm going to paint it black. You can use chalk paint or acrylic paint. If you don't want it black, you can do it brown or gray. It's totally up to you. I'm also going to paint the front and the back pieces, and also underneath the roof where the eaves would be on a regular house, and make sure that everything is covered well. Before I painted, I forgot to put on the little peak piece. This is just a coffee stir stick, so it's just a little bit thinner than a regular popsicle stick. I already cut it down to size, and I'm just going to hot glue it so it goes straight across the top. Then I'll paint that black too. I'm going to paint the body of the house white. I want this to be sort of a farmhouse look, and I'll be adding some texture and some other bits and pieces as well, so keep watching. Once the whole piece was painted white, I decided to just hot glue a piece of cardstock to cover up the hole and the hole where the peg was. This was just easier than trying to find a piece of wood and cut it to size. This will end up being the back of the house now. For the front of the house, I'm using a glue stick to apply a little printable that I found on Pixabay of a farmhouse. I printed it out in black and white, cut out the bottom portion, and I'm going to just stick that onto the front of my house. Then I'm going to take the rest of the house, which is more of an angle. I'm going to need to cut it to the angle of my birdhouse, and then I'll glue that on as well. I've got some different sizes of bottle brush trees. These are the 2-inch ones, and then I also have the 1-inch ones that you can get at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to trim off the little gold piece because I don't need that for this. I'm also then going to use the back of the tree, and I'm going to part the bristles as you see me doing here. And that's going to make it easier to glue this onto my house. I'm going to add some hot glue to the tree and then push this into the corner of the house. I'm going to add a small bottle brush tree to the opposite corner, and then the opposite corner on the back is going to have a large tree and then a small tree on the opposite corner again. I have all the trees added that I wanted. So now I'm just going to take my stencil brush from the Dollar Tree and just using a little bit of white paint, I'm going to just pounce on top of the house, making it look like it's been scattered with snow. Using one of Dollar Tree's little tools, I'm just picking up some really old paint that is around the side of my jar. When I make my own chalk paint, the talc always gets a lot drier and makes things thicker when it's on the side of the jar. And this made it really easy for me to just go in there, scoop some out like you see me doing here, and it has the consistency of icing. So I was able to very easily spread it all over the sides of the house and also on the top of the roof. This was a really fun project, and I was so excited when I saw what this thick paint could do. It looks exactly like snow. I hope you like this one as much as I do. I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of this Winter Wonderland collab with all of these amazing creators. Our hosts for this collab are DIY with Nadia and Crafty Leanie. So please make sure you go down to my description box and click on the link to their channels because you're not going to want to miss out on what they do. There will also be a playlist so you can see what everyone else is going to be creating. It will be down in my description box, so all you have to do is click on the link and you'll be able to see everyone's videos. I think out of all of the DIYs that I made today, this one is my absolute favorite. It's the cutest little wheelbarrow, and I found this at a dollar store that's close to my cottage in a little town. And it was just the sweetest thing. I had to have it. And now I'm sorry I didn't grab a couple of them. I'm taking some burnt umber that is mixed with water, and I'm going to stain just the handles and the legs on this little guy. I'm using Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Parisian Gray to paint the tub of the wheelbarrow. I love this chalk paint. You can find a link for it down in my description box. It is super thick. It covers in one coat, even raw wood. It doesn't soak in like regular chalk paints might, and latex or acrylic paint for sure you would have to do 2 to 3 coats to get the coverage with one from this paint. And lastly, I'm going to paint the wheel of the wheelbarrow just black. Once it was dry, I took a piece of styrofoam and wedged it into the bottom of the wheelbarrow. And now I'm going to put another one on top and just use a toothpick to hold them together. I have a couple of different styles of white berries, and this one is frosted just nicely white. The other one that you see to the right there is more of a pinky kind of frosty. It's more of opalescent color, I guess. And the ones I have in my hand right now are a touch smaller than the others. So what I'm going to be doing is just trimming off the wired stem and then just pushing it into the styrofoam, creating a base of snowballs. I'm going to continue adding them all around the outside edge of the wheelbarrow because I want to be able to camouflage some of that styrofoam. I'm going to continue adding them until the whole bottom is full. With the other berry pick, I'm just going to use my scissors and just cut off most of the snowballs that don't have some of that opalescent pink on them. Some of it is okay, but some of them had a really big piece and I didn't want that. So these don't have a wire to them. So I'm going to be using hot glue and I'm just going to kind of place them in between all the other snowballs, piling them super high. And this turns out super cute. I was so excited when this actually came to life. To fill in a few more of the gaps, I've got these little white pip berries, and one portion of them has sort of like a crystally look to it, and to me it looked like ice. So I'm going to just trim those off and hot glue them all around in different spots on the pile of snowballs. So this is looking pretty cute, but I wanted to add a little bit more color and texture. So I'm trimming off tiny little bits of these faux cedar branches and tucking them all the way around the tub of the wheelbarrow, kind of underneath the snowballs. For the final touch, I went over to my Cricut Joy and cut out a label. And this is what I'm going to attach to the side of the wheelbarrow. It says fresh snowballs rolled daily. And I think it's absolutely the cutest thing. I hope you love this one as much as I do because I just can't seem to get enough of this little guy. Any of the designs that you see in this video will be available on my website as free printables. All of that info is also down in my description box. I'd like to thank all of my current subscribers for their support. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you're new to my channel, perhaps coming over from the playlist, I would love it if you could hit that red subscribe button too. I'm trying to reach my goal of 30,000 subscribers by the end of 2021, and I'm less than 500 subscribers away. So if you're not part of my channel already, I would really appreciate your help. It's been quite a while since I shared how to make some tiered trays. So I'm going to use these two wood pieces that came off of a dog toy that I picked up at my local dollar store. I'm going to use this miter box and clamp these in. Isn't this the coolest miter box? It's so old. It's something that my stepfather had at the cottage and I had to bring it home because look at, you can clamp in your wood pieces and then you don't have to hang on quite so hard to them. I'm going to use my little hacksaw to just cut right through this, and then I'll do the same for the other one. For the bottom part of the tray, I'm using this 8x10 frame that came from my Dollarama store. It has a really nice chunky frame to it, and you can see that here, and it's a natural wood color. And I just thought making something with a natural wood color and not painting anything would be a nice change. So I'm just going to remove all of the stuff in the back, but I'm going to keep it all intact because I will be replacing it. I glued the frame backing to a piece of cardstock that has a wood grain finish. And now that it's dry, I'm just going to take my craft knife and very carefully just cut out the paper. This is the scrapbook paper that I chose. I thought it was a nice complement to the frame. I'm going to keep the glass, so I'm going to just go ahead and insert everything back into the frame, and that will make this tiered tray really nice and sturdy. The glass will also be really easy to clean. I'm going to use Weldbond glue to glue the feet onto the frame. Now the frame is just in there with those little clips. So after the Weldbond glue has dried, I'm going to come back and reinforce that cardboard. This is a frame that I repurposed last year for Christmas, and I put some little trees in it and made it a little bit of a snow globe effect with these little silver glitter balls that are going straight in the trash. Using a screwdriver, I'm just pushing out these little cardboard pieces that were nailed into the frame, and that's what gave it the shadow box effect because these pieces prevented the backing from going all the way onto the glass. So now I'll be able to pop out the glass, and I'm also going to remove those little clips there because I don't need them. Using this handy little razor scraper, I'm just going to be cleaning up the back side that has some glue on it. I'm also going to take this little scraper and scrape all of the paint off of the glass from this frame. I repeated the same process, adding the scrapbook paper to the backing. And now I've set the glass and the backing back into the frame. This time I have to secure it with some hot glue. I'm also going to use some of these tumbling tower blocks that you can get at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue one in each corner once I'm done gluing the boards down. This is going to just give the glass some extra support and make sure that it doesn't fall out. Now that the feet have set up, I'm going to run some hot glue along the frame and the cardboard backing just to make sure that there's a little bit of extra security. I was going to use the tumbling tower blocks, but they would stick out too far and you'd be able to see them, and I didn't want to do that. So I'm just going to use a generous amount of hot glue on all four sides. So sticking with the natural wood look, I found this at the thrift store. I don't know what it is, but it looks like a spindle to me. So what I'm going to do is just trim off the very top part because it's too tall for the size of the boards that I'm using. Again, I'm using this handy dandy little miter box, and this time I'm going to use a hacksaw and just saw my way through this piece. I've centered this out, and I'm just marking 4 little dots on either side to make sure when I'm ready to glue it down that I put it in the right spot. I'm doing the same thing on the small frame because this is what I'm going to be gluing first. This is how I assemble my tiered trays. Sometimes you would think that it would be easier to put the large piece on, but I wanted to make sure that I could get this centered as well. Again, using my Weldbond glue because this gives me a permanent hold. I'm going to just set it down in the spot where it needs to be and then put it aside and let it dry. It's been about an hour and the glue is good and dry and set. So I'm going to now attach the two pieces together. I've got my 4 dots that I marked out earlier, and now I'm just going to place it down and then make sure that I have it completely straight. Tiered trays usually have some type of decorative piece at the top. So I found this little piece of wood in my stash, and it was perfect because it had the same color as the bottom part of the spindle. So I'm using my Weldbond glue again and finding the center and setting that aside to dry. For this project, I'm using 2 of these dollar store frame backings with the easel, and I'm taking some tumbling tower blocks and I'm going to glue them on, creating a frame all the way around. I got really lucky. I planned this out ahead of time and I didn't have to do any cutting of the tumbling tower blocks. They all fit just really well. Once the first one was finished, I did the second one the exact same way. I'm using the Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the Parisian gray again, and because this is so thick, I can actually camouflage the seams where these tower blocks are. So I just add a little bit of extra paint in there and it fills in the cracks really well. I'm going to go ahead and do the frame of this one in the gray, and then in the other one, I'm going to do the interior of the frame gray. So now that I've painted the inside of this frame, I'm going to paint the blocks white. And I'm using my DIY chalk paint, but this is a little bit of a thinner consistency. So I decided to add some more talc and make it much thicker so it would fill in the cracks just like the folk art paint did. I added a good amount of talc. The one that I have right now is one more of the Johnson & Johnson baby powder that is pure talc. This is no longer being sold, but I've had this for a really long time. And if you're looking for talc, I do have some links down in my description box. I'm just adding it to the paint and stirring it up until I get the consistency that I want. And I want this to be super thick, and that's what I'm achieving this way. If you want a full recipe of how to create DIY chalk paint, it is down in my description box as well. I'm going to paint the interior of this sign with the white paint, so I have an opposite look. I created this little printable sign that says warm winter wishes. I printed it out on simple regular printer paper, and I'm just using my glue stick to put it inside the frame. I cut it a little bit smaller than the frame because I wanted to add a little bit of detail around the edges of the white paper sign to make it stand out a little bit more. What I did was just take a permanent marker and just outline the white paper, and that just makes the sign pop a little bit more. Now I'm using one of my small chippy brushes and some black paint to do some distressing. I like to distress by just pulling my brush in from the outer edge of the frame, and on the inside I'll do the opposite. I'll just pull it and towards the outside of the frame, and I'll get the same type of distressing all the way around. Then I'm just going to go very lightly around the outside edges of the frame and then again on the front of it. Here I'm using just a piece of buffalo check or gingham black and white ribbon. I've cut the dovetailing into both ends. I'm going to just fold it over like this and glue it right onto the corner of the sign. I'm just going to add a little bit more glue on top of the fabric and make sure that that fold stays in place. Then I'm going to add a large snowflake. I have these clear plastic snowflakes that I got at Dollarama, and I'm just going to put that right in the middle of the ribbon. And I've also got one stuck to the bottom right-hand corner. Since these snowflakes were clear and you really couldn't see them, I added a little bit of the Parisian gray chalk paint to them, and just to make them stand out a little bit more. For the gray sign, I did the same type of distressing with the black. And now I'm taking this tiny little wood cutout ornament that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use my miter shears to trim off that Christmas tree. I don't want it on here, but I want to preserve all of the other little bits and pieces. Now that it's cut out, I'm just going to use my Sharpie fine point marker and color in the tires. I did get a little bit of bleeding because this is raw wood, but I'll be able to cover that up with the next coat of paint. I just used my burnt umber acrylic paint to dry brush where the wood is on the truck. And now I'm going to take this clay color from Martha Stewart chalk paints and paint the rest of the truck. I used some white to paint the wheels on the tires, and now I'm using the rest of the paint on my brush to go over just the top portion of the truck. This is going to make it look like there's a little bit of snow sitting on top, and some of my brush strokes kind of added a little bit of paint to the side of the truck as well. It's just going to give it a snow-kissed look. To make the truck stand out away from the backing of the frame, I'm cutting two of these little pieces and I'll stack them together and then glue the truck on top of that. It's just going to give me a little bit of extra room for the next step. I've pulled off some of these little berries that are on a stem, and they're little styrofoam pieces that are frosted, so they look like snowballs. So I'm going to just glue a whole bunch of them to the bed of the truck and have them kind of spilling over and making it look like a cute little 3D sign. With a Sharpie fine tip permanent marker, I'm just writing the words Frosty Snowball Farm. I'm going to go over them again, make them a little bit thicker, and add a little bit of embellishment to the frosty ones. I like adding the little balls on the end of the letters, so I think that just looks really whimsical. To fill in some of the white space and add a little bit more character, I'm taking the end of a really small paintbrush and just putting some dots in with black. Of course, I couldn't put snow falling down and white because you wouldn't be able to see it, so I thought the black would just add a cute, fun touch. Then I'm going to add some pine cones to the corner along with a black ribbon and a few more snowballs, and this project is complete. I hope you enjoyed these projects today. If you did, I would love it if you could hit that thumbs up button. That helps me get noticed more on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that notification bell because you won't want to miss out on what I've got for you next. There'll be some more Christmas and some more winter themed DIYs coming your way very soon. Take care. Bye for now.